There are millions of acres of opportunity out there. They belong to you. Every day, decisions are being made that affect your land, your water, your wildlife. You should know about them. This is your mountain. Hey everybody, welcome again to another episode of the Your Mountain podcast. Sitting across from me is one Nephi Cole, who I caught mid-drink.
It was delicious,
and
too.
it's not a Monster energy drink.
Yep, I ran out of
today.
Monsters, and I was forced to go to the backup.
Yeah, I won't do any more brand plugging than that.
Yeah.
I'm David Wilms. This is weird. I feel like we do a lot of these remote podcasts without Mike because he doesn't get to come to these pretty incredible places that we get to go to with our day jobs.
By get to, you mean have to.
I say get to.
No.
Am I wrong to say get to? I mean, we have to do it, but we also get to do it because it means we get to keep working on conservation issues.
Yeah, it's a neat event. So we're at the
We're at the Association
of
Fish and Wildlife Agencies annual meeting, and we are sitting in room 417.
Yeah, come on up. Come on up. If you're here in St. Paul, you want to come join us, come up to room 417 in the whatever hotel this is.
Hyatt Place.
I'm just
going to give it all.
Come
all
in.
the information.
Come on in.
Yeah, it's pretty comfortable. We got sofas here. We got nice view of the city. St. Paul, Minnesota.
It's really nice.
It is really nice, and we are fortunate to be joined by somebody that has actually joined us before.
Yeah, so happy to be here too. It's a lot of fun. Last time, though, I believe we were in Denver, right? At the North American.
North American.
Yeah, so kind of the other side of the conference. They do spring and fall. And
So reintroduce yourself.
So Jon Zinnel, Conservation and Youth Shooting Sports Manager for Federal and CCI Ammunition.
Now, when we talked to you before, I think you were with Vista Outdoor, weren't you?
Yeah, so the parent company, Vista Outdoor, I was a youth programs outreach manager for Vista, where I worked across all of the brands, and then just recently came over to the ammunition company alone. So
I'm
now
glad to see you more focused.
Yeah, and I think I am too. I mean, I've always been a shooting sports and a hunting and a hunter recruitment guy from the beginning, and so now I'm straight focused on ammunition things and able to work within our marketing teams and everything and new product development as we're moving forward to help that and get new products in the hands of these hunters and shooters. So absolutely happy to be focused.
So before we dive into some of what you're doing and why you're here at this conference, the same one we're at, I got to ask one question, and that is there a story behind the flamingo socks?
Oh yeah, the flamingo socks. So these socks.
Did you wear these last time too? Were you wearing flamingo socks?
these are new.
I think you're not. You were wearing some kind of obnoxious loud sock in Denver as well.
Yes, I did. Yeah, I had some obnoxious socks on. So the flamingo socks go back to my daughter, who's 2, just turned 2 this last weekend, and she has got a slight obsession with Mingos, she calls them, because she doesn't quite have the speech there at 2, and so she picked out these socks, and here I am sporting them. So great conversation piece, though, right?
And I didn't know. It caught my attention.
I woke up today and I had no idea that I was going to do a podcast, so that was new.
Yeah, well, it just helped us kill a minute and a half.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, so great. All right, so tell us a little bit about. So I know you have. You're a longtime sponsor of the Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies convention, right?
Yep.
Annual meeting.
We're in your backyard too.
We are in your backyard.
Yeah, and that's it. And so I just spoke at a meeting previous, which I think we'll talk about a little later on. But yeah, so Federal Premium is located in Anoka, Minnesota, which is on the north end of the Minneapolis-St. Paul metro area. We're here in St. Paul today, so about 45 minutes north of here is the campus for Federal Premium Ammunition. So all of our products, a rimfire, centerfire handgun and rifle, shot gel, all of that is built, raw products in, finished products out in Anoka, Minnesota. And we are 98 years old, so we're coming up on our 100th anniversary manufacturing ammunition at that same complex, which is now surrounded by residential areas and shopping malls and everything else. So it's quite the feat to be the world's largest ammunition manufacturer, with all of our companies together here in Minnesota, and we're very proud of that, and we're excited to have everybody here. We wish we could have brought more people up to the factory to do some tours and actually show them, all of the products that are being pushed out the door, and get to meet some of our staff up there. So yeah, this is right in our backyard, and happy to be here, and happy to be supporting AFWA and the conference.
So what did you talk about at the conference today? What was your subject matter?
So my subject matter, so the conference and the meeting that Nephi's talking about is the Hunting and Shooting Sports Participation Committee meeting, and I spoke just briefly, but I wanted to step up and have the opportunity to talk about some new product innovations, and as the market for shooting continues to grow in lots of different ways, there's always going to be innovation, right? So if you look at whether it's a hunting product or a shooting product, things change. It's exciting times, really, because there's so many companies out there, us included, that are putting so much time into R&D to bring new and exciting things to our customers. And so sometimes, though, that brings hurdles with state wildlife regulations on participation. So, for example, 3 years ago, we came out with tungsten super shot, which has been around for a long time. Hand loaders have been loading tungsten loads for turkey hunting for a decade or more, and we brought it to mass market, and were able to fill that void for customers. That's what they wanted. That's what they needed. We went to town and developed several different loads and several different gauges of shotguns, and now some of that product is regulated within state regulations for shot size restrictions for hunting turkeys.
So what you're basically saying then is, because the density tungsten is super high.
Yeah, so our product is just over 18 grams per cubic centimeter, whereas lead is just over 11 grams per cubic centimeter. So, it
almost twice as much.
Almost twice as much as far as the density goes, yes.
Yep. And so what that lets you do then, right, is, you talked about turkey specifically. So what it lets you do is more shot, smaller shot, or in a bigger, let me say this right. More shot in the same size package, or more lethality in the same size package, or a smaller cartridge with equal capacity to get your turkey downrange.
Yeah. So when you're talking the payload on there, so you're able to load in shots of 8 shot or 9 shot or 10 shot is your shot size, and so you're able to have more pellets in your cartridge, and so your pattern is going to be more dense as well, right? So obviously everybody knows turkey hunting, you want to have a nice solid pattern. So there's always been talk on and research and patterning boards with different choke tubes and different loads, trying to develop just that right sweet spot to where you have no holes in your pattern, things are good. Well, lead being softer, you get deformity once you shoot, right? Because of all the pressures as things are going. So that's you get flyers, and you'll get some holes and things like that. Well, because tungsten is so dense, you get no deformation as really consistent. And because your shot size are smaller, your pellet count is going to be that much higher. So you're going to have less holes in your pattern, and you're going to be able to carry that distance on further. And so it's a fantastic product for turkey hunting. It is more expensive. That's one thing. It is more expensive, but your shot patterns are better, your distances are better, you're more consistent, and which then brings you to what you mentioned earlier, is going down into smaller gauges, right? So you're able to take a 410 load, or even a 28 or 16 gauge load, or whatever the case may be. So our 410 load, you're able to have essentially the same payload as something similar to a 12 gauge, 3-inch, 4-shot lead Magnum load. And so if you can think of...
now in a 410.
Now in a 410, right? 13/16 of an ounce of TSS 9-shot is what our 410 load is. And think of it as the recruiting opportunity for turkey hunting,
well,
right?
I think it's awesome.
It's a gateway. Yeah. It's a gateway opportunity because you get a lot of great interaction with the birds. You get to decoy. You get to call. You get to spot and stock. You get to do that on the mentor side of things. And you can use a smaller framed gun, a lighter weight gun, less recoil than some of the larger 12 gauges and 20 gauges even at that matter, and still successfully harvest turkeys with that 410.
Yeah, for my 9-year-old. Sorry, Dave. I was going to say for my 9-year-old, I mean, this is right down the alley for what I want to do with him because, I mean, there you go, 410 gauge shotgun. Not a lot of people making, very expensive auto loaders in 410. So, I mean, for turkey, you can set him up with a relatively inexpensive gun, and then that's capable that he can handle, that's going to work for him, and then get him out to what really is one of the most addictive, intro level, get people hooked into hunting opportunities, which is turkey hunting.
Oh, absolutely. It's an interactive hunt. So I grew up in the Midwest and turkey hunted and went through all that and then spent a lot of time out west, right? So then I got addicted to elk hunting. So I look at turkey hunting as kind of that poor man's elk hunt. You can go and hunt turkeys in 6 or 7 states, oftentimes not having to worry about drawing a tag and going through that whole process like you see in western states type of stuff. But you get the calling interaction, you get the decoying interaction. It's a fantastic opportunity for, specifically in our conversation today, talking about that R3 efforts, right? Recruitment, retention, reactivation, and this is a fantastic opportunity for recruitment. So going back to kind of our product section and what I spoke about, there's oftentimes hurdles that come up when we have new innovative products that are they're just new, right? They're new. States, agencies, and others, never thought that was going to be an option, right? And so most of the turkey regulations were still written back when turkeys were reintroduced into their states, right? So they're decades old. And so now trying to go back through with these states and updating those regulations. And that's where it's important for the legacy of our company to continue the support for, AFWA and for all the state wildlife agencies. And so we can have those conversations and talk to the state wildlife agencies and kind of see what opportunities are there and what needs are there. And then we can react to that as a manufacturer of the best ammunition in the world.
Yeah, so basically it was just to crystallize this discussion a little bit. You developed this new product and you had regulations that prohibited that market or that product from being, for example, TSS 9-shot in a 410, right? From being able to get in the hands of consumers that could use that on turkeys, right? Because you had regulations that didn't anticipate that there would be a load in a 410 that would create you could take an ethical kill on a turkey.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. And so, for example, we're here in Minnesota, right? Minnesota did not have a shot size restriction, but they had a sub-gauge restriction. So they were not allowed to use, it was 20 gauge or larger, right? And that's where most of the regulations were written. Now, not all of them have gauge restrictions, but many of them were 20 gauge or larger. And that's kind of on the sub-gauge side. And then otherwise, it's shot size restrictions. And so it'd be, nothing smaller than a 8-shot or nothing smaller than a 6-shot or language as such. So Minnesota, for example, just last year they went through the process and they changed that. So now there's no longer restrictions on sub-gauge. So now youth hunters are able, or adult hunters are able to go and take a 410 out in the field and successfully hunt turkeys with them and legally hunt turkeys with them.
So I'll tell you a story and you can make fun of me for it.
Done.
Yeah, I figured you might do that. So I was in a turkey hunt earlier this year in the spring. It was it's called the Old West Turkey Invitational.
Yeah, been there.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
In fact, you all sponsor it.
Yeah.
And so
I didn't get an invitation.
I think you did get an invitation and you couldn't make it.
I did. I went to BHA instead.
Yeah, but joined
with Jon.
Yeah, that's where I was at. Yeah, we saw each other there.
High five.
So I was on the federal team at this event, and I had some TSS. I had a box of TSS for my 12 gauge. I think it's 7-shot maybe.
Well, we had heavyweight 7, so you were probably shooting straight 9s.
It might have been. It could have been 9s.
9s.
Then. Okay, it could have been. Well, that's the thing is I wasn't shooting them. I had them. So
they were worth more on eBay.
So here's I suppose where you can make fun of me because the rest of the people on the federal team tagged out. I did not, and I had one opportunity on a tom. Actually, I had several. I had one that came in. Several in a good way. I mean, there were a lot of turkeys around, and we were having a ton of fun, and we were calling them in, and we were set up in one spot, and we didn't really know where the property line fence was until the turkey came right up to it and couldn't cross it, and we realized, well, that's presenting a problem. So I had a turkey at 20 yards, and I couldn't do anything about it. But then had one at about, I don't know, it was 60 yards. I even had the rangefinder and put it up 60 yards. And I was just not willing to take the shot because I've spent my entire life hunting turkeys with a shotgun, 2 3/4 inch, 12 gauge. I tend to use steel, like number 4 shot. I'm like, I'm not going to take a shot past 40 yards. 60 yards would be just fine with that TSS load.
Yeah, I mean, and we encourage all hunters to go out, especially in this case, to go out and pattern their guns at the same way that they would whether they were shooting steel or shooting lead, and taking that opportunity to know exactly where they're going to shoot.
Yeah, I wasn't going to do that at $7 a round.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you there, but absolutely, that would have been, have been within range, and that's, one of the great things about the product is if it's lined out in the right firearm and everything else combination-wise, you can do that, and I mean, it's a fantastic product. But you're right, it is expensive. But there was a need for that, and we went into market with that, and it's been successful for us. And National Wild Turkey Federation has taken that as well. So all of our products have royalties on them. All of our turkey products do, so that each portion of each of those products being sold is going back to NWTF for their mission. And we do that with several other organizations as well, just as an add-on, right, of how we want to be able to give back to conservation and working with all of those organizations. And so we not only support hunting and shooting sports and all of that through the PR dollars that are spent on our behalf there, but we then go back to those organizations and sponsor them and go to their conventions and work with their organizations. And then, for some cases like this on the turkey loads, we have a royalty program for them as well. And we have that with Pheasants Forever and Rocky Mountain Elk. And it's a great way for us to engage in those organizations and show our support from a manufacturer and from the industry to give back.
I think it's awesome. And I know Federal has been very impactful in efforts that I've been involved in the past in terms of the, trying to get people involved. You were here talking about new product, but also you're here working on R3, recruitment, retention, reactivation. I know that whenever we've done, so I worked on an effort to expand shooting sports in the state of Wyoming, and you guys were the first people to step up and send product to try and help make it so that the state could put that program on the ground. You did the same thing this last year. We did we sponsored the Magpul Governors match as well, and then we had media from Meat Eater come out. We had legislators out, and you guys stepped up again to make sure that we could get all those folks out on the range and teach them to shoot 3-gun and things like that without, you helped us put that on the ground. And I know you guys do that all over the place, all the time. How many shooting sports events, what kind of stuff do you guys sponsor? Yes,
I mean, it would be hard to even throw a number at that. And so it's been something that the company has been passionate about since they started. So I said 98 years old. I mean, I know that the 4-H shooting sports, for example, which is an organization that I grew up with and went through their programming, we were at the table when they were founded, when they got through and they started these conservation camps and brought shooting sports into those, knowing that they wanted to take the normal audience of the 4-H programs through all the ag things that they were doing and then teach them outdoor skills, and shooting sports being one of them. That particular program now is morphed into the National 4-H Shooting Sports, and they're in 40 plus states across the country. They do 400 to 500,000 kids a year going through shooting sports and firearm safety programs. And the great thing about them is that they're, air rifles and rimfire rifles, and their shotguns and muzzleloaders, and several divisions in archery. So you have compound and recurve, and they have hunting skills. And so to throw a number at the number of events that we sponsor, I mean, we're the longest tenured sponsor for 4-H, and that's 500,000 kids a year going through that program. We're the Boy Scouts of America, the official shooting sports partner with them, and they're in the millions as far as the number of scouts that they have, and we support many of their camp facilities and shooting sports programs But then going into, like you were mentioned, the 3-gun, which is a growing market, right? Some of those PRS matches and 3-gun things. We have.
PRS match. Can you explain what that is?
Precision Rifle Series.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's long distance.
Variable distances, right? So oftentimes long distance.
It's field based, so it's not like your traditional long range rifle. People think, you sit at a berm, you sit and shoot out of a berm 1,000 yards. And PRS is very active, so I love it because it's what I like to do, because I think it prepares you, quite frankly, for hunting. Because what you're doing is you take a rifle and you have to shoot from a firing position, like on top of a sloped, like a little. From behind a barricade, like over a tree, whatever.
Real life situations.
Real life
right?
situations at targets of unknown distances, and within. And it's not like 3-gun. You're like against the clock right now. Like every second matters. And in PRS, they give you a window of time typically to shoot within. And so it makes it a little bit different and a little bit more like hunting. I think it's a great way for hunters to improve their skill sets to become a better hunter. I truly believe it.
I think Dave wanted to talk about hunting. I think that was his feeder question, right? He set that. I think he set us up for that to jump into the hunting side.
I don't know. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, and hunting is important to the whole operation here as well, as far as what we're trying to do, and specifically at this conference when these state wildlife agencies are here. There's a lot of discussion on license sales and that whole opportunity, and most of these state wildlife agencies, their funding comes from license sales and excise tax, right?
So, I was going to hit on this, right? Because I was here to talk about that other piece, and so how much of your business is hunting? How much is shooting sports? Do you know? Have you guys quantified it? Because I know. I wanted you to answer it first.
Yeah. So, as far as the overall breakdown, because our company is as large as it is, we have hunting, we have recreational shooting, all the target sports, everything else, but we also have a large, size government and LE contract size of that. So as far as the breakdown of it, I probably couldn't speak on what that is.
So I was talking on, my presentation, we were talking about the target and marksmanship. The target marksmanship and the Range Act, the target marksmanship.
You were really
Act.
well prepared for this presentation.
I don't have my notes in front of me anymore, but which creates opportunities, more opportunities to expand ranges, build new ranges in states, and one of the figures I share. So for hunters, and this is for everybody listening to this podcast, why do you care? Why should you care about the shooting sports? And I don't know if I've ever actually talked about this on the podcast.
Yeah, only like 25 times.
Yeah,
Nephi. Every chance you possibly get.
80%. Hey, it's not because I think one's better than the other, but it's just a realization that if we love hunting, we got to get people out to do the shooting sports, because 80% of that budget is coming from non-hunters.
So break it down, because 80% of the
80%
Pittman
Pittman Robertson.
So and let me break it down a little bit more, and then you take it right. So because John hit on this. We have
license sales.
We have 3 buckets that we're talking about. Really 4 buckets that we're talking about, actually. So let's take a state wildlife agency, and we're not going to pick a state. We'll just say Agency A. And Agency A's budget is made up of the revenue from selling hunting and fishing licenses and other licenses. Right? It's made up of money that comes in through grants, which actually makes up a pretty small portion of this budget, grants and interest off of other accounts that they have. And then the other big bucket comes from revenue that comes in through allocations out of the Pittman Robertson and Dingell Johnson Act funds, right? And so you have...
And of course, some agencies, maybe you already mentioned this, are getting something from the state legislature too.
Yeah, there's some supplement there. And if you really want to dive into it, you could say states like Colorado get money that comes through their lottery program. Yeah. States like Georgia now get money that comes in through a trust account that's been set up. And there's license plate funds that sit there. So there's other revenue streams. But
states vary.
Let's say the 2 main sources are these Pittman Robertson, Dingell Johnson Act excise taxes. Pittman Robertson being the 11% tax on firearms and ammunition, and the Dingell Johnson being on fishing equipment and boat fuel, and motors.
certain
fishing,
archery stuff.
And I meant
is
archery's in Pittman Robertson
Mm-hmm.
as well. So, so those are the two pots.
archery tackle. I like to
Archery
say that.
tackle.
Those are the two pots. Those pots combined account for about $1.1 billion roughly.
Pittman Robertson, Dingle Johnson.
Combined.
Yep.
If you break those out, Pittman Robertson is something in the neighborhood, and I'm making this stuff up at this point. I think I'm close. You probably know
lion's share of
it's
it.
like 700 million of the 1.1 or 800 million of the
It's about
between
800.
7 and 800 million of
Yeah.
the 1.1 billion comes out of Pittman Robertson.
Yep.
And when you look at that breakdown, very, very little of it comes from the sale of archery equipment. Some of then
Enough. It's still important.
So
if you're an archer,
No, I'm not saying it's not important. I'm
go
saying
buy a new bow.
yeah, I'm not saying it's not important. I'm just making your point for you in a different way, right?
Yeah.
So portion of that is archery equipment. The lion's share of it is sales of firearms and ammunition. And when you break that down, of what share of that is firearms and ammunition sales from hunters versus non-hunters that are more interested in the shooting sports, it's an 80-20 split in favor of those that are not hunting, right?
That's right.
So just the piece that I always like to make sure is crystal clear, you still have this agency that's like half of the revenue is
That's
coming
right.
from license
So
sales
just
and
divide
others,
them in
and
half
then
to
another
make it simpler. You got 50% of it's coming from your license sales and whatever else, and about 50% from your Pittman Robertson funding.
right.
So they're roughly equal.
Right. Yeah.
So
And
for sportsmen, if you think that you're getting left out in the cold, you're not. You're contributing.
contributing more than 50% overall.
If you buy a license.
If you buy a license.
But
Yep.
don't forget, and here's the take home point for me is this: is like a sportsman, this is a great opportunity because you look at that 80% where that's coming from, and those are people who are funding what we love. And so I always tell people, get people out to the range because those people are contributing. They don't know that they're contributing. But literally, they have no idea.
And going back to this whole R3 tactic, right, of the low hanging fruit, right? I mean, that's what it's referred to oftentimes here in conversation with our peers is that those folks that are at the shooting range already participating have already jumped several of the largest hurdles to get to hunting, right?
Expense of getting in, right?
They've maybe got the equipment because they have the firearm, the optic, whatever it is. They've got experience at the range shooting, so they're past that point as far as introduction.
halfway there.
They're halfway there.
They're more than halfway there.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you could go and grab those folks, and they're going to be more comfortable in the field as far as taking them out and having the opportunity to participate in hunting, whether that's, on the wing or chasing elk or deer or whatever the case may be. Maybe turkeys with TSS.
Yeah, I think it's just, again, such a huge opportunity. And I think it goes both ways. It's a huge opportunity for us to, go to the range, make some friends, take them hunting, or take one a year. Take one a year.
Yeah.
If only one of those sticks after a 10-year period, think about what you've done. Like, you could, if all of us did that, what could we do for the future of hunting and the shooting sports? For hunting specifically.
Yeah, I mean, as you see license sales decline in many states, right? And
Just take one new
Well,
hunter.
and
a year.
you and I have both done our part. I want to know, John, have you done your part? Your part to
taking
take
new
new
hunters?
hunters out.
I have, absolutely. So, yeah.
Individually, not through federal and all the millions of people that you're
not
you're
through those specific programs and everything, but my wife is a perfect example, right? Grew up in a family that didn't shoot, didn't hunt, but wasn't against it in any way. Just never had that opportunity. And then, of course, she got lucky and met me in college, right? So how fantastic is that? and she may have different feelings of that, but she was able then to learn through my passion, right, of wanting to go and take more people and get them involved in shooting sports, and then ultimately take them hunting. She went out and she harvested a mule deer in Montana a couple years ago, and she's all for it, right? She loves it. So I mean, it's a perfect example of somebody that wasn't grown up and now enjoys shooting and going into the field.
I like to push it the other way too, and this is because as a hunter, and I'm weird about this, but I really think that if you hunt, like, you have an obligation to get to the range.
Oh yeah.
And people give me a hard time. Dave gives me a hard time about, like, oh yeah, how many bajillion miles away? And it's like, you know what? Like, I want to be able to shoot a tiny piece of steel at 1,000 yards, and then get as close to elk as I possibly can.
No, you don't.
Yes,
I've never taken a close shot at an elk. I take that back. You did one time,
Thank
but
you,
it was an accident. It surprised you.
No, you do, but you do want to get as close as possible.
No, yeah, I do. But
I do too.
If you see an elk, your whole objective
than others.
No, if we were hunting together and we were to see a herd listen.
I know what you're going to say.
If we were hunting together and a herd of elk came wandering out and we put the rangefinder on it and it was at 200 yards, we'd be going in different directions because I'd be trying to close the gap and you're like, nope, too close. And you'd back it out. You'd be shooting over my head.
You're wrong. But no, in all seriousness, I mean, this is something like we could get into it later, like this concept of ethics. We don't need to talk about hunter ethics, but I really agree that backing up, I don't think that that's something anybody, my personal opinion is like, that's not what you do, but
I was just teasing you.
I know,
only,
but it's
only partially though. I've never hunted with you on the elk hunt, so
it's an actual discussion though. People.
Oh, it absolutely is.
Yeah, people. Yeah. This is something that people at least anecdotally will say that some people do. But I would say, again, for me though, like there's a lot of hunters who, I have friends who we have and one of them sitting on the couch right there, who would rather, who like. I don't know that they love going to the range and throwing boxes of ammo downrange, but
let me put it this way, because I know you're pointing fingers at me.
Yeah, his friend was not me.
No,
so yeah,
that clearly wasn't you in this case. I could see where he was going with that. I absolutely love throwing ammo downrange when I don't have to pay for it.
But just remember,
but I know every purchase, 11% is going to conservation.
Right. I was going to say at the governor's match this year, I used this in my presentation. We did the largest 3-gun match in the nation this year was in Cody, Wyoming. It was awesome. Again, thank you for everybody that came, the Meat Eater guys and everyone else, and 300,000 rounds of ammunition in 3 days. And I just joke with somebody, every time you heard like a gun go off, I was just nickel for conservation, nickel for conservation, nickel for conservation. So,
that's funny.
Yeah, and John's loving hearing that.
I know, right? Yeah, no, that's it's all part of the full. It's all part of this whole process. When we talk about this and we go and sit in these meetings, and it's fun to hear and see these other groups engage in that and how important shooting sports is, and directly tied then to wildlife management and hunting in the country, right? And how to get them to the level of being successful and then wanting to maybe take that next step into the field, right? And whether that's, chasing birds or whatever. And I think we had originally, in this whole little 5 minutes ago as we started this, talking about, the range bill, right? I mean, that's kind of where we were going on that, and having the access to get to those ranges and participate even more, right?
That was going to be my next point, actually, so I'm glad you said that, because I was going to give an example. And this is, you say about not wanting to get to the range. I want to get to the range more. I've got 2 kids that are coming up. I've got a daughter that just took hunter safety last year. She's really interested in getting into hunting. I'll tell you what, they're in Cheyenne, around Cheyenne. We've got some decent ranges, but we've got a wait list a mile long to join at least one of them. One of them is a commitment of time to be able to drive. Well, 2 of them from where I live are a serious commitment of time round trip to get to. And so when you and I'm somebody that's really interested in it. Yep. So here's my point. I'm somebody that's really interested in I love hunting. I'm really interested in getting my kids involved and getting them ready to go and feeling confident behind a firearm, for getting into the field. Yet even for somebody who's grown up with it, even for somebody that is passionate about their kids getting involved. Now I'm doing it. I mean, we're doing it, but the
now
the ease of
something funny.
The ease of access isn't. You can't. I'm just saying the ease of access, even for somebody that really wants to.
Yeah.
Like there are opportunities to.
Well, you're right, and interestingly enough, like for us in Wyoming, for us in Cheyenne, Wyoming, to complain about this is laughable, because you know how far away those ranges are? It takes a long time to drive to. Like, it's 10 minutes outside of town.
Yeah,
it's 10 minutes outside of town.
Each
one 1,000-yard range.
Yeah, and so even you talk 1,000-yard range, right? When you get into areas like where we're here in the Midwest, I don't believe that there's a 1,000-yard range in the state of Minnesota. The range that I'm a member of, which is about 2 miles from my house, has a KD range out to 600 yards. And you have to go through a process and classes to get certified in order to shoot out at those distances. But it's a private club. You have to be a member, and this one in particular has, a financial obligation to pay for your membership, but also a time obligation to put in time at the range to be a range officer for a couple days a year. And so, I even find that, and I live and breathe this for my job, a hard time finding time to be able to go and do that, right? And as much as I wish I could, and I love to do that and love to interact with everybody at the range, it's a challenge, right? And those are hurdles that are real hurdles for people like you and I that want to go out and do that.
That's my point. If people that want to go out and do it and have been exposed to it their entire lives are still finding that there are hurdles to doing it, from a recruitment standpoint, what does that mean for those people that haven't been exposed to it, that you're trying to get into it and show that the opportunity is there? I mean, they're
policy wonk on this. So the Target and Marksmanship Act, what it does is it makes it so that you can do 90. So it changes the Pittman Robertson cost share allocation so that states have to use 10% state money, and they can use 90% federal money, meaning their Pittman Robertson money, to build a shooting range or enhance a shooting range, and they can do that over a 5-year period.
They can use up to 10%.
They can use they can use. I'm not talking about how much of their Pittman Robertson funds they can use. I'm talking about it's 90-10-5, which means if the state brings $1 million, if the state brings $100,000 to the table, you can use your PR funding for the other $900,000 or $1 million.
So the match money.
That's right. Yeah. So that's what I'm talking about. And then the percentage, you're right on the percentage, it also applies. You can only use so much of your Pittman Robertson dollars for a range project. But
now, to be clear,
I
don't know if you mentioned this or not. We've talked about this act a little bit, but it's passed. I mean, it's
done.
It's law now. I mean, it is. The states are allowed to start implementing this.
And some of them are trying. I know Governor Noem in South Dakota. You talked about availability. I mean, this will blow your mind. South Dakota doesn't have. They don't have a long range, unlike the entire western side of the state, and so that's South Dakota. And Governor Noem is looking at developing a project there with her team. They're looking at a potential project around Rapid City that would be just a jewel of a project, in that part of the world. And so it's exciting to see people working on those types of projects. But it's
and policy-wise, it's exciting to have that as potential for these state agencies. And then, for the other, kind of part of my job of what I do and support youth shooting sports programs, I coached high school shooting team in Utah, and I've participated in a lot of these organizations and went through and one, funding for those organizations is always a challenge, and then access, right? And so as these sports continue to grow, and there's tens of thousands of kids participating in just clay target sports, for example, shooting traps, skeet, or sporting clays, and even the Scholastic Action Steel program, which is a program for youth to learn how to shoot, kind of those entry-level steel matches using rimfire rifles and in some cases handguns, depending on the age. Those often run into hurdles with range access and things. And so, there's a funding source with Midway USA Foundation out of Missouri, the Potterfields, Larry and Brenda. They've put together their own funding structure for range grants. This last year, they posted up I think it was $1 million they put on the table, and they sent it across, and they did a granting program for enhancing or increasing and adding ranges within certain regional areas for range grants to come up with money. And then they're, part of that whole process is those ranges to find other grants to pool together and build those ranges. And one of the hurdles in the trap world, which is where a lot of my passion goes, is Olympic bunker trap, right? And so I have history in Utah. There was a facility in Utah that received one of these grants to go through and put in a bunker trap, and that'll be, an epic thing for the West, right? So those kids in Utah or Idaho or Nevada, the closest places for them to drive and shoot bunker trap was Phoenix, Arizona, or Colorado Springs, where the Olympic Training Center is. And so to have something now centralized like that, and because they saw it as from generosity of saying, hey, we've got the availability to be able to do this, and we support these organizations. They put their money where their mouth was, and they went through and built this range grant program, which the organization, to my knowledge, is looking to grow and looking to build on this to do an annual program to get more funds across the country. And this is outside funding, other than what we just talked about with state wildlife agencies.
So I want to touch, again, I started talking about like the policy. One of the things that's really important about this, and it's challenging, right? Because I need to use that word.
Because you haven't used it yet.
Yeah. Is that the, those Pittman Robertson dollars, just so we're clear, like this isn't new money. And so one of the challenges that we face with these state agencies
I was going to ask you this question.
Because that money right now, the same $20 million is pouring into that state. And so while you can use more of a percentage of it now, it's more liberal in how you can apply it to build and enhance ranges, you still have to realize that money, right now, there's some angry biologist somewhere who's using, who's using that money for a habitat project or something.
It could be used research.
It could be used for
a
host of
counting prairie dogs, which is what Dave wants to use it for.
I've been there, done that. I don't need to do any more counting of those.
But the reason this is challenging is when you talk to folks about this. Here's the challenge. Pittman Robertson funding. We all agree. We all talk about R3 and the importance of this, $1 billion a year in Pittman Robertson money that comes into these agencies. But everybody's kind of insulated from the source. And shooters don't know where it comes from, and sometimes the wildlife agencies they kind of forget where it comes from. And so you have this issue where the golden goose that's laying this egg, the participants in hunting and the shooting sports, for an agency to get that money comes out of a Pittman Robertson tax that goes in at the federal level to Treasury, and then comes back out through formula funding. So in Minnesota, if I increase participation in hunting and the shooting sports in Minnesota by 10%, that doesn't mean I'm seeing a 10% boost in my budget here. Right. That means it's dumping into the national kitty, and then I'm seeing a much smaller percentage of that. And so to that biologist in the field, it takes some serious time before they see the benefit of building 5 new ranges in my community. That doesn't come back immediately. But at the same time, if you don't get people involved, if we are, it's not just shooting ranges. I think about this with taking somebody to your favorite spot to go hunt ducks or whatever.
I want to go there.
Yeah.
I want to go to your elk spot, actually. I hear everybody always talking about Dave.
I know where it is.
Yeah, I'd love to
I'll post it up on our I'll post it up on our Instagram.
Yeah, Instagram.
I don't know what elk spot. I've never killed an elk.
I think I heard you talking about it on your podcast this morning when I was driving in.
Was I?
I think so.
Oh, that's a mistake.
Everything but the coordinates, yeah.
Well, yeah, I do that.
You make lots of mistakes.
I do make a lot of mistakes. We all do. I don't think... I hopefully haven't given away too much, except maybe letting Nephi know where it is. That might have been the biggest miscalculation I've ever made.
But I think what I was trying to say with that whole thing is we got to be willing to share, to invest in other people, and to invest in growing the sport and recognize that we need that in order to have the money for more habitat projects, for more biologists. Yeah. We have to be willing to put the money in over here if we're going to continue to see the North American model work. Because if we get territorial about it and selfish about it, whether it's our favorite hunting spot or whether it's a pot of money, some money that we're getting for a certain program, it's not going to grow, and we're going to be in trouble because it'll go away. And we will be the last ones to enjoy it.
Now, there are other challenging issues associated with this, right?
So many.
So one of the things that we haven't talked about is at the same time this change is being made to Pittman Robertson to allow for more use of the funds for shooting ranges, and I think you've done a nice job. Both of you done a nice job of explaining why it's important to invest in the shooting sports because of the money that then comes back in.
I know where you're about to go. Well done. Nice segue.
The other piece that we're dealing with at the same time we've got declining participation in hunting. So that 50% of license sales when we talked about the 2 buckets, license sales and Pittman Robertson, that 50% is entirely driven by hunter participation, that first 50%. And 20% of that other bucket. So 70% of this is entirely driven by hunter participation. Those numbers are dropping. At the same time, there are more demands on the agency as far as, with
all the animals you have to take care of,
with the responsibilities for the animals you're having to take care of, with more petitions to list species under the Federal Endangered Species Act all the time, and states not wanting to see that happen. The amount of investment, the dollars are being spread farther, and there's less of it coming in, and then at the same time they're being asked to say, invest in this, in developing these ranges that it'll be these short-term losses, hopefully for some long-term gains, but you can't see those gains. And you're saying, well, I've got to deal with these short-term losses or I'm going to have these species listed.
Agencies, game and fish agencies aren't just in charge of game and fish anymore. They're being asked to do
everything.
Yeah.
All wildlife.
Yeah. And stuff that isn't, to be frank, stuff that doesn't pay its own way.
And so, one of the possible solutions being floated around for that might pave the way, this is just my opinion, right? That might pave the way for, encouraging states to get more engaged in utilizing this new 10% to support the shooting sports through the development of ranges, is Recovering America's Wildlife Act.
Absolutely.
So Recovering America's Wildlife Act, for those that aren't, we've talked about it before on this podcast, but it's a bill that's been introduced in the past, I think 3, maybe 4 Congresses, right? It's up to something around the neighborhood of 120 sponsors on the House side right now. And the idea is that it would take revenues from offshore oil and gas leasing, maybe it's royalties from offshore oil and gas, and divert those, and through a formula not dissimilar to Pittman Robertson, but slightly different, redistribute those monies back to the states for purposes of some of this non-game or non-huntable species management, so that the license revenue coming in can really be used to support the hook and bullet species.
Yeah.
And then this pot of money can be used to support the non-game side, and then that can help stabilize the bank sheet and maybe free up some of that PR money to be used for shooting ranges.
Yep.
Just my one guy's opinion here.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's critically important. And then another interesting piece to that is the PR Modernization Act that's coming up after that.
And we're getting wonky.
Yeah. Then
that's what we do.
Then allows you to use a greater percentage of your PR to actually to market hunting and the shooting sports, than you can today. So it's there are a number of really good bills out there. We just got to get everybody to quit fighting long enough to move some of these great bills along, because there's some really neat opportunities out there for our part of the world, for things that we care about, if we can just get moving.
Yeah, and I'd say on that, so on the, the Sport Shooting Marksman Act, what is it called?
Target marksmanship.
Yeah, so that's been passed, right?
Yep.
Recovering America's Wildlife Act has not. So if that's something you're interested in, supporting Recovering America's Wildlife Act could ultimately help support the development of shooting range and the shooting sports. I mean, ultimately it could.
For sure. You're talking, because what you're talking about is freeing up an opportunity. There's only so much money
that's exactly
that goes
right.
into these agencies, and you do have these turf battles, to be frank, within the agencies.
Mm-hmm.
I'm certain of it, between from different programs and things like that. So freeing up an opportunity, making it less stressful to feed the golden goose, is that's a positive thing.
And there's no better time than the present on this Recovering America's Wildlife Act to support getting it pushed, because you have such broad bipartisan support for the bill, at the same time where you have a UN report talking about a global extinction crisis, and then you have this new science study talking about the 3 billion. The decline in bird populations in North America by 3 billion in the past 50 years, which turns out to be about 30% of all birds. You have that but the other thing that showed up in that report was that bird species that are increasing, waterfowl, right? So ducks and geese,
and
ducks
raptors.
And geese and raptors.
Yeah. So 200%.
So two things where we've invested a bunch of money, into through hunters and anglers, investing money on the ground, and others through like Federal Duck Stamp and Migratory Bird Treaty Act and other things. Those numbers are increasing. This is an example of another bill where if you have the funding and you have the commitment, you can build a lot of species up, right? Which is better for I think better for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, it's good for just the ecosystem in general, right? With all these species in there and going over the same habitats and things. Absolutely. I think it's a great, and you hit the nail on the head right now is the time,
Strike while the iron is hot, so to speak, as I'm looking over your shoulder at an iron.
It's not hot.
I don't know, but I haven't used that strike while the iron's hot one in a while.
Have you used an iron?
I'm like, oh man, there's an iron.
When was the last time you used an iron?
Yesterday, I had I got this new suitcase, and I'm convinced that there's some kind of electrical vortex in it. I don't even know if that's a thing.
Does it take socks? Does it steal socks?
No, but
I have one of those in my dryer.
I've never had shirts come out of a suitcase as wrinkly as they came out of this one. Like, I don't iron shirts. I intentionally go out and buy these non-wrinkle shirts. I don't want to iron shirts.
Is that a non-wrinkle shirt?
It's a non-wrinkle shirt.
How'd you get so many wrinkles in it?
And I ironed it yesterday. I put it back in my suitcase, I guess.
Innovation right there in your shirt. Innovation.
I mean,
it's trendy
but
now.
It didn't. I bought these non-wrinkle suits, and they don't work.
I thought you were going for that look.
Of the wrinkle look. Mm-hmm. No, I think there's something wrong with my suitcase because, like I said,
probably.
So yeah, my iron looks about like yours. Yeah. In fact, I think I would venture to say it's the exact same one.
It's as if we're staying in the same hotel.
Yeah, right. Not the same room. Let's be clear about that.
Yeah.
But definitely in the same hotel. So what else?
Well,
what else do you want to plug?
Well, I think just to kind of go through and recap, just the history of Federal Premium and CCI Ammunition both and their true dedication and support to, not only wildlife conservation and hunting, but also to youth shooting sports and those programs and organizations that support that, and how important those shooting sports are to the hunting, right? And to the hunting side of that with license sales and going kind of full circle on all of those things. So, I mentioned earlier, Federal's coming up on their 100th anniversary, and CCI just celebrated 75 years in Lewiston, Idaho, and just a fantastic opportunity and time for us to come together and talk about the legacy of our companies, right, and the support that we're providing to the industry and the consumers to support those efforts, whether that's through shooting sports participation and going to the range and going through all of those, or going through the full circle and doing the hunting side of things, right? When you're going out and buying the licenses and going into the whether it's the mountains of Montana or Wyoming, or the prairies of South Dakota, or hunting ducks over on the East Coast. I mean, the opportunities in this country are endless, right? And we all know, and we talked for the last hour about some of the issues and concerns that are coming up with funding those types of things. And so for us to be part of that and to continue our decades-long support of these types of organizations and conferences and organizations that are supporting these types of things, I think is important to us, and it's our passion, right? When you go up to Anoka, Minnesota and pull into the parking lot of our facility, I mean, you see trucks and you see mud and you see these types of people that are working for this company and that are passionate about the work that they're doing and the products that they're able to provide to our customers. And they're also the end users. They're the ones that are going out and supporting this. And so they're proud of us as a company to go out and to support these types of organizations and the work that's being done on the ground for conservation, as well as these organizations that are providing programming to educate and to teach the next generation, whether that's through shooting sports or ultimately going out in the field and hunting. So, Federal is been proud of doing something like this for, 80, 90 years, and we're looking forward to, the next 100 years of support.
That's awesome. I thought of one thing I forgot to ask you about.
Yeah.
I'm going to take you after that great wrap up that you just did.
Yeah. All right. I get another chance at
totally
one.
ruin our zen, our flow, our whatever.
You guys are doing something exciting, which is, I don't like to reload. You have a new custom shop, don't you?
We do. Yeah. So
you do 7mm Rem mag?
I believe that is going to be one of the cartridges. Now, don't quote me on that, but I will.
Because you guys are Basically, you guys will stir up the ammo that I want.
Yeah, so it's a fantastic opportunity.
Wait a second. You're doing all the reloading? Or just stirring up the... like you're sending him...
So just to give you...
I want to know what... Yeah.
Yeah, the quick rundown on this. So we launched this federal custom shop, and we launched it at this last year's NRA show, right? And so it's still finishing up. Our website will be launched here within a month. So it's the end of September now into October. This will be live on our website, federalpremium.com. You'll be able to go on to the website, and you'll be able essentially, you can choose through, we have 10 plus calibers that we normally would not load or do not load in our manufacturing facility. So as you can imagine, as we're going through the process of reloading tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of rounds a day on these machines, it's not an easy process for our engineers to come in and change that over for caliber that we're going to go and reload on a caliber with a specific bullet, and it's because somebody wanted 2 boxes of there. Well, that's something that we just can't feasibly do, right? And so we're the world's largest ammunition manufacturer, but we also want to be able to work with our customers as the most detailed and a small time shop as well. So we developed this custom shop where we picked 10 plus calibers that and this is going to probably fluctuate up as we continue to launch this out of what calibers are needed and requested within our customer base of what they're looking for, and then provide them with a whole suite of bullets to choose from, right? So many of the bullets are bullets that we make. Many of the bullets are bullets that our competitors make. And we have customers that are passionate about our company, right? Our products, our premium products are out there. We're the best in the industry when it comes to building these things. And so they love what we do with our consistency and our premium products at the end of what they're taking back to the range or going out and hunting with. So we're able to use our technology, our engineering staff, our groups of people going through all of the chemistry and the powder, and we're building custom ammunition, small batch, on a custom order basis, one by one. So you can go on our website and you can order and choose your caliber. You choose your bullet. They're going to have options in there as far as your load data goes. They're going to have all of that on the website as far as being able to provide you with all of those things. And then we're going to have somebody hand loading that ammunition. I took a tour of this facility just last week. We had some riders in town to kind of go through this whole process, and it is unbelievable. There's 3 guys that are really kind of running this and building up all of the load, and they're our head chemists when it comes to working through all of our powder and our bullets. And so between the 3 of them, it's 90 plus years of experience that are going through this, and they're the ones that are sitting behind these reloaders, reloading this small batch ammunition to be able to go out and being shipped to you. So not only centerfire rifle ammunition, we're also doing shotgun ammunition. So we're doing tungsten loads, TSS loads for waterfowl, upland, and turkey loads, and we're doing that in all gauges. So we're going 410s, 28s, 16s, 20s, 12s, 10s, and we can go through. I mean, we've got the entire suite of shotgun gauges.
10 gauge TSS.
And people
what
ask,
are you hunting?
Yeah, people ask for it. They did, honestly. I've worked the
pterodactyls.
Yeah, I've worked the turkey show the last couple of years, and they come up and they say, "When are you going to come out with a 10 gauge TSS?" And I look at them, I'm like, "Well, why in the world would you want a 10?" And they do.
I've seen Jurassic
it.
Park. I need to defend myself.
Yeah, and so our customers are asking for it. Our customers are wanting those things, and so this is our way to be able to go through and to develop these loads for them, and it's going to be, high quality ammunition that's coming to them that's built to the specs of what they're looking for as far as a custom shop goes. So a fantastic opportunity for us to be able to provide.
You realize you're a bigger geek about this stuff than I am.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean,
I appreciate
we
that
spoke,
because it makes me feel very normal.
We spoke yesterday, and it was awesome to go through different rifle builds and going through that, which, I would imagine, and this is, to quote Dave, another podcast. So as he goes through and we talk about that, it's always another podcast. And I hope that I'm able to come back again, right? This is my second time, and that's exciting.
And when I said another podcast, I meant like literally somebody else's podcast.
Okay, I get it.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No, this is your second time.
It's my second time, and
hopefully it's not your last time.
I hope not. I hope to be back because it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, I got one more question for you as well. I'm gonna put you on the spot a little bit. Not really. I mean, you know the question you listen to this. You know the question. You've been on it before. You know the question we ask at the very end of a podcast, right? I mean, I'm going to ask you what your mountain is.
Yeah.
All right. The thing is, I asked you this before and you answered, and I want to know, like, we're going to test if you were just making stuff up or if you legitimately have this.
Because Dave writes them down, like looks them every night.
I can go back and listen to it.
So do you remember what it was?
No, we've done too many of these. I don't know what your mountain is.
Yeah.
I barely remember mine.
Yeah.
Every time I need to know what mine is, I go ask Nephi. I just ask Nephi.
Put it on social.
Yeah. No, but seriously, and you can have more than one. Obviously, a lot of people have more than one.
Yeah.
What's your mountain?
So last time my mountain was hunting in Iowa, which is where my family still lives, where I grew up, and hunting with my family and going through there. But I would say my mountain for this particular podcast is going to come back to my socks. Right? We talked about them earlier, and how important family is to me, and I would assume family is to all of your listeners. As you know, I've taken my career path of working in the R3 movement and really trying to work on getting more people, young and old, introduced into shooting sports and hunting. And so we talked earlier about my goofy socks that are like a baby, just to visualize these, baby blue with bright pink flamingos from top to bottom. Mm-hmm. And my daughter, who just turned 2 this last weekend, which was just a fantastic time to celebrate and watch her grow. And so my mountain for this particular podcast would be my front yard, and that would be every night that I'm home and not working and trying to introduce more people into the sport would be to spend time with my daughter and see her grow and the enjoyment that she gets from interacting in the outdoors, whether it's picking up a toad that's next to our house or chasing down and looking at the geese that are flying over and listening to them honk and understanding those types of words and the excitement that she sees from there, and just the excitement that gives me that she's only 2. I have a long time to wait in order to get her into the field and bring her into the fold of this community and this family that we're all part of as sportsmen and women going out and participating in hunting and in target shooting. So that's where my mountain is. And I just can't wait. I mean, it's fun and exciting. And between now and then, because that's going to be some time, I'll continue to take others out and show them and have them participate in shooting and hunting. And challenge myself every year, just as you guys do, to try to do that same thing.
You have to, right?
Absolutely.
Because if you want your kids to be able to go, like, we got to get more people on the train, or our opportunity goes away.
Absolutely.
Their opportunity goes away.
And you said that it could be a while, and I'm here to tell you, it's not. It's
fast. You think about it, and it's right here.
I mean, so I took my middle child, my youngest daughter, on a moose hunt when she was 16 months old. I had her on my back in a backpack on an archery moose hunt. I've taken all my kids dove hunting from the time they were 3 years old. Mm-hmm. They're sitting out there with me in the field. They don't have to be shooting to be hunting.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
It's all about
I know
the
Nephi
experience.
does the same with their kids. So your time is now. It's you don't have a lot of time before the great times really begin.
Yeah, and luckily I've tried to work this through, and I'll have my wife listen to this podcast, and hopefully this will put a little pressure on her for anybody that knows her. My daughter was born in kind of mid and end of September here, and that's peak elk time, right? That is peak elk season. So I'm hoping that when she gets of age, we can get her in and start getting her some tags, and we can do a birthday elk hunt every year. And so that is something that we got to have a little pressure at home to make sure I can make that happen.
You know what? All it takes is the kid wanting it.
Absolutely.
Last year, my daughter, her birthday's in November 18th, and November 16th was the opening day of goose season for late migratory. And last year, she said, "What I want to do on my birthday is I want to go goose hunting with Dad."
Fantastic.
And so that's what she wants to do on her birthday. So it doesn't take much. And when a kid says that, no mother can say.
That's right. I agree.
One, it gets them out of the house.
Well played.
Yeah. So, but anyway, so that's an awesome mountain.
Yeah.
And so I look forward to hearing more about, future endeavors with your kid.
Absolutely.
And look forward to having you back again.
I very much look forward to that, and I appreciate you guys having me on this time, and I've had a good time, good conversations, and hopefully good information for everybody too. I mean, it's exciting times in our industry right now to try to work on some of these things.
Yeah. So we'll do it again. You're innovating all the time, so it won't be too long before we have to do this again. But until then, until we get a chance to do this again, for everybody out there listening, as always, just remember that life is about experiences. So go have one.